All right, what up, chat? So today we're gonna be watching Audit the Audit. Now, some of these guys are actually a-holes or less desirables when they go about doing it, and some channels have it where the police are in the right, some channels have it where the journalist or the actual person, the suspect, is in the right. So this one isn't exactly somebody that goes out and talks to these people, but some of these police officer audits we will be checking out as well. But this one specifically pertains to this YouTuber that goes and analyzes the cases and things like that. And so this one specifically is about an officer that may or may not be getting arrested by the end. So before we start though, I want to make a little bit of an apology to anybody out there that saw the last video where I was watching the pop balloon thing and I was eating. So yeah, shout out to the channel Audit the Audit. I'm not giving legal advice to anybody, as they also say themselves. And yeah.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers license plates, warrantless searches, and officer drug abuse, and is brought to us by the Civil Rights Lawyers channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On July 5th, 2019, local resident Ramon Brown was driving to a gas station in Minneapolis, Minnesota in a recently purchased vehicle when he noticed Officer Ty Jindra of the Minneapolis Police Department driving behind him for several blocks. When Mr. Brown pulled into the gas station, Officer Jindra followed without activating his emergency lights. After Mr. Brown parked at a pump and exited his vehicle, Officer Jindra approached him. The interaction that followed was captured by Officer Jindra's body camera.
You gotta have that temp tag down, man. Temp tag needs to be down lower.
Is it up high?
625. Why don't you just sit in the car?
What'd I do?
625. Sit in the car. Get in the car. That's expired, is it not?
Well, what did I do?
Sit in your car. Sit in the car.
I mean, it's already weird when a cop's following you and doesn't activate their lights, but you kind of know that they are. Again, I'm not going to be too biased with any of these. You know, I mean, what's real is real. And I'm also going to check out some things where the cops are in the right and the suspects are in the wrong. But it's also a thing that I want to make a point. I watch a lot of these videos, and sometimes the officers get weird because you're nervous, which is normal from their perspective. But at the same time, cops get nervous when cops are behind them. You know what I mean? Everybody does. It is what it is. But so far, that's not the case here. But I just wanted to point that out before we go forward.
All right, I'll take your license and your proof of insurance.
And then again, I also don't like the way that like some of these interactions go. Like it's almost like like that Stanford experiment, which is also it's up in the air psychologically. But the fact that, you know, as soon as something happens, as soon as there's any type of occurrence, a lot of officers out there immediately throw out the window that you're a person, right? Now, granted, at any circumstance of a traffic stop, it could go south for them. And I get that. But that's with the mindset of guilty until proven innocent. Let's say this guy's temp tag is expired. The first thing he said was, "It's up too high." I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I understand, like, if you had your license plate in a weird spot, they can't see it. So yes, it does make sense, but it was cordial. It was casual. He's like, "Oh, it's up too high." Then I guess the guy saw it 625, which I guess is, that'd be 625 as in what? The 6th month? I thought it would be the 6th month, 25th year, which is confusing because we're just now in 2024. And I thought this said, this said it took place in 2019. Oh, I'm just looking at the body cam footage date there, but I don't think it was 2024 yet. So 625 is kind of crazy, but it's a temp tag. So that would mean the 25th of the 6th month, right? But at that rate, if it's simply the tag being expired, why escalate the situation? He even put his hands on him. Again, they have the right to do certain things, but even outside of the law, you got to give respect to get it. A badge doesn't get you respect, and simply being a citizen doesn't get you respect. But there has to be some type of cordial engagement here on both sides.
What did I do?
Hey, I need your license and proof of insurance. Your temp tag is expired. Can I be any more clear to you?
I got the registrations right there. That's what I was trying to tell you.
You need.
See, and why is he talking to him like that? Why is he talking to him like that? Because there's one, this is the problem with a lot of people. And I have this problem in my workplace sometimes. Certain people were raised differently. There's a way you talk to people. That's the biggest thing. I don't care what you say to me, right? I got thick skin. But it's not what you say, but how you say it. And that's something that everybody needs to learn, because that's that shit right there that gets to me. Because why are you trying me today? I'm out here trying to be a better person. I'm hoping you are too. So let's just simmer down a bit. You know what I mean? And that's especially with a cop, because he's escalating the situation. How much clearer can I be with you? The person's in the same way that cops are nervous, citizens are nervous too, for the same reasons, especially with the way that things go. You don't know how it's going to go.
You need to have license plates on your car.
Officer Jindra orders Mr. Brown to present his driver's license and proof of insurance, citing an expired temporary tag and the absence of license plates on his car. And Mr. Brown attempts to clarify that his license plate is visible in the rear window. Under Section 168.092 of the Minnesota statutes, individuals who purchase a new or used motor vehicle may obtain a 21-day temporary permit, which must be affixed to the rear of the vehicle where a license plate would normally be affixed and plainly visible. However, because Mr. Brown's temporary permit was expired, he would need to display license plates in a manner that complied with state law. According to Section 169.79 of the Minnesota statutes, one license plate must be displayed on the front of the vehicle and one license plate must be displayed on the rear. The statute also requires that, now quoting, all plates must be 1. Securely fastened so as to prevent them from swinging, 2. Displayed horizontally with the identifying numbers and letters facing outward from the vehicle, and 3. Mounted in the upright position. According to the statute, the driver must also keep the plate legible, unobstructed, and free from grease, dust, or other blurring material so that the lettering is plainly visible at all times, and may not cover any letters and numbers or the name of the state of origin, now quoting, with any material whatever, including any clear or colorless material that affects the plate's visibility or reflectivity. Although the statute does not explicitly state that the license plate must be mounted on the exterior of the vehicle and cannot be displayed in the rear window, it has generally been interpreted to require such exterior display. And in an Ask a Trooper column for the Albert Lee Tribune, Sergeant Troy Christensen of Minnesota State Patrol wrote that, quote, license plates must be displayed on the front and rear of the vehicle. They cannot be displayed in the front windshield or rear window. The fact that Section 169.79 requires the license plate to be mounted and prohibits covering the license plate with any material, which would arguably include a glass windshield, supports this interpretation. Further, Section 169.50 of the Minnesota statutes requires that the license plate be illuminated with a white light by a rear lamp or a separate license plate lamp so as to render the license plate legible from a distance of 50 feet to the rear, and such a requirement could not be met by a license plate placed in the rear windshield. In the 2008 case of Frazier versus Commissioner of Public Safety, the Minnesota Court of Appeals held that an officer had reasonable suspicion to conduct a traffic stop when a vehicle's license plate was partially obstructed by snow, in violation of the requirement of Section 169.79 that drivers keep their license plates unobstructed. In reaching this conclusion, the court reasoned that, quote, our cases do not require much of a showing in order to justify a traffic stop. Ordinarily, if an officer observes a violation of a traffic law, however insignificant, the officer has an objective basis for stopping the vehicle.
I love how he lays out the laws, the statutes, and then like for instance, this guy's in the wrong in that situation. It's in the rear, but it's in the window, right? But again, it could be simple. Explain those things. Clearly the guy's ignorant, but ignorance of the law is an excuse. However, this isn't a matter of guilty or not guilty yet when it comes to how you talk to somebody. You can relay information without being an asshole. I don't care how your day was. If you're an adult, you know how and how not to talk to people.
As such, it is likely that a court would conclude that Officer Jindra had probable cause to detain Mr. Brown based on the observed license plate violation.
Give me your license and your proof of insurance, or you're going in handcuffs.
All my registration tags is back there.
No proof of insurance?
That last point may be a third of Franklin. They don't believe there's a BP.
He just already told him that it was back there. And you see how he gives him the license and he's saying it again. But the guy takes the license and says, I told you it's back there. I just saw this in another clip where a guy said, that's not the suspect. And then the cop said, that's him? I said, no, that's not him. Because the guy had a problem with the other guy and wanted to, direct his anger at him.
Yes, third Nicholas.
Third Franklin. All right, step out of the car.
Copy.
Throw him, translator back.
He's complying.
Copy.
Why are you driving without a license, man? Huh? That's kind of stupid, isn't it? Huh? Let's go. You got anything illegal in the car? Spread your feet. Take a seat. 6580, I'm going for it.
He listened to everything the guy said. He did everything, and he's invoking his right to remain silent.
Copy code 4, 2257. 532 is clear. Copy.
Hi, can I help you?
People are allowed to watch.
Copy.
We'll be out on 1 gallon plus.
After Mr. Brown provides Officer Jindra with an identification card rather than a driver's license, Officer Jindra handcuffs Mr. Brown, places him in the cruiser, and conducts a thorough vehicle search. Under Section 171.08 of the Minnesota statutes, quote, every licensee shall have the license in immediate possession at all times when operating a motor vehicle, and shall display it upon demand of a peace officer. However, the statute clarifies that, now quoting again, no person charged with violating the possession requirement shall be convicted if the person produces a driver's license previously issued to that person which was valid at the time of arrest, or satisfactory proof that at the time of the arrest the person was validly licensed. Now, while Officer
So that means you have to have it on you, go through the process, but then if you can prove that your license was valid during that time, no charges should be filed.
Jindra could have used Mr. Brown's ID card to determine whether or not Mr. Brown was actually licensed, the statute would not require him to do so, and it is likely that a court would conclude that Officer Jindra had probable cause to arrest Mr. Brown for failing to display his driver's license, which would likely render the use of handcuffs and placing Mr. Brown in the cruiser lawful. However, even if a court found Officer Jindra's restraint of Mr. Brown to be constitutional, it would almost certainly determine that the search of Mr. Brown's vehicle was not. Although the Supreme Court held in the 1983 case of Michigan versus Long that, quote, the search of the passenger compartment of an automobile is permissible if the police officer possesses a reasonable belief that the suspect is dangerous and the suspect may gain immediate control of weapons, Officer Jindra had no reason to suspect that Mr. Brown was dangerous.
He had no reason to suspect that he was dangerous or anything. He could have suspected that maybe the car was stolen, but the guy had an ID card, gave it to him. He could have seen that the car was registered in his name. There was the temporary license. There was the registration back there. There was the insurance. Everything was there for him to double check things after he had him into custody. But he didn't.
And, at the time he conducted the search, Mr. Brown was secured in handcuffs in the backseat of the cruiser, which would eliminate any possibility that he might gain immediate control of any weapons that could be hidden in the vehicle. Likewise, while there are situations where officers may conduct a warrantless search of a vehicle after they place a recent occupant under arrest, as the Supreme Court explained in the 2011 case of Davis versus United States, such a search is only constitutional, now quoting, if the arrestee is within reaching distance of the vehicle during the search, or if the police have reason to believe that the vehicle contains evidence relevant to the crime of arrest. Here, Mr. Brown.
Now, see, the crime of arrest there is a lack of registration, insurance, and license, right? Which are all non-violent. So a search for weapons or anything illegal is unrelated. Now, he could check and see if the car is stolen and things like that. If the car came back stolen, maybe, I guess, but even then, the car is the illegal thing. You know what I mean?
Was secured in the police cruiser, and as the so-called crime of arrest would be failing to display a driver's license or driving without a license, there would be no reason to believe that relevant evidence would be found in the vehicle. It should be noted that the Supreme Court determined in the 1976 case of South Dakota versus Opperman that officers may conduct a warrantless so-called inventory search of a vehicle that is being lawfully impounded, and had Officer Jindra chosen to charge Mr. Brown and impound his vehicle, the search may have been considered reasonable under the Fourth Amendment if it was conducted according to department inventory search procedures. However, because Mr. Brown was ultimately released and the vehicle was not impounded, the search could not be justified as an inventory search. As such, it is highly probable that a court would conclude that Officer Jindra's search of Mr. Brown's vehicle was unconstitutional.
And I just want to make it a point, like, imagine all the things that would go on if we didn't have body cam footage, straight up. Imagine all the things that have and would go on if we didn't have body cam footage, and that still go on today because some departments probably get rid of it. Again, I'm not going to sit here and paint all cops as bad. That's not the objective here. We'll look at some things where the suspect is in the wrong. But again, when they're wrong, they're wrong.
What's up? What's your buddy got in your car? What is it? What is this? Huh? What does that look like to you? You don't know? No idea, huh? What would you guess it'd be?
I have no idea.
You have no idea? Alright, I'll just tell you.
That's not mine, sir.
While searching the vehicle, Officer Jindra appears to find a white powdery substance inside some folded currency, although the alleged discovery of the item was not captured by Officer Jindra's body camera, and Mr. Brown denies knowledge or ownership of the substance. In addition to denying any knowledge of the substance during the interaction, a lawsuit that Mr. Brown filed concerning this interaction alleges that the white powdery substance did not belong to Mr. Brown or his friend, and that Officer Jindra brought the substance to the interaction and planted it in Mr. Brown's vehicle. After a pattern of similarly so-called questionable citizen encounters was identified, Officer Jindra was investigated by the FBI and was eventually charged with multiple counts of acquiring a controlled substance by deception in violation of Section 843A3 of Title 21 of the U.S. Code, which states that, quote, "It shall be unlawful for any person knowingly or intentionally to acquire or obtain possession of a controlled substance by misrepresentation, fraud, forgery, deception, or subterfuge." As summarized in a press release issued by the U.S. Department of Justice, the indictment alleged that from at least September of 2017 through at least October of 2019, Officer Jindra abused his position as a Minneapolis police officer to obtain controlled substances, including methamphetamine, heroin, oxycodone, cocaine, and other drugs for his personal use.
That is crazy. That's the shit that you see on TV. And this guy actually got investigated for it. And I'm not sure what happens next. But congrats. Congrats. Because there's a lot of times when people say it's not theirs, and it is. Let's not put that to the side. But that is crazy. That right there, activities like that is why we have so much problems back and forth between citizens and officers.
Specifically, the indictment charged that Officer Jindra diverted drugs that he confiscated from lawful searches of persons and vehicles for his own purposes without reporting, logging, or placing the substances into evidence, and without informing other officers about the controlled substances that he had confiscated. Additionally, the indictment asserted that Officer Jindra would find ways to interact with or search an individual, vehicle, or residence so that he could surreptitiously recover controlled substances, including by conducting searches beyond the scope warranted under the circumstances. Now, although Officer Jindra was not charged with a drug-related crime stemming from his encounter with Mr. Brown, Officer Jindra was also charged with 3 counts of deprivation of rights under color of law. One of these counts alleged that Officer Jindra willfully deprived Mr. Brown of the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures in violation of Section 242 of Title 18 of the U.S. Code, which prohibits willfully subjecting another individual to the deprivation of their constitutional rights under color of law. Now, although no one but Officer Jindra can know his true intentions during the encounter with Mr. Brown, it seems likely that a court would find that he intended to deprive Mr. Brown of his rights when he searched his vehicle in violation of the Fourth Amendment.
And that's why I was trying to explain to you that the plates and the registrations is all right there in the window.
Alright.
Can I show you?
I'm gonna give you a break. You have a license, you know that, right?
Yes, but because I was just using my brother's car. Can I show you the plates?
Go ahead.
I'll show you. The guy who you bought the car from, he told my brother, he said, don't put him on until June 2nd. He said, don't put him on until...
Well, it's July.
Oh, well, yeah, I know, but he been having a car sitting.
Alright, well, put him on.
Should have a yellow tag then. And he just
I just pulled it off because it expired a month ago.
That's what I'm saying. It's my brother's car. I didn't...
Alright.
I just barn.
Alright.
Alright.
Alright. Thanks, guys.
Officer Jindra allowed Mr. Brown to leave without charging him with any offenses or issuing any citations.
And that's crazy because, so I think I understand what happened there. So it wasn't that he was trying to plant the evidence on him because let's say he confiscated it somewhere else and was trying to plant it on the guy. I'm not sure. Clearly the guy was left to go, but maybe he did find it, but it's the fact that he found it illegally. Or he did bring it, couldn't get it to stick, and so he's letting him go. Because in what scenario would someone be allowed to go when you find a controlled substance? I'm just not understanding. I'm not wrapping my head around that. Let me know what you think down below. Was it planted or found and kept.
Sometime in 2019, the Minneapolis Police Department Internal Affairs Division commenced an investigation into Officer Gindra's conduct after he went into a house while paramedics were treating a man for an overdose on the front lawn. Body camera footage showed Officer Gindra searching inside the home before he turned off the camera for no apparent reason. As part of the investigation, the department discovered other body camera footage showing other encounters where Officer Gindra appeared to detain individuals for questionable reasons, misappropriate the drugs he seized, and released the detainees without arresting them. MPD Officer Rich Jackson also reported Officer Gindra to Internal Affairs after watching 2 separate encounters where Officer Gindra unjustified.
Holy cow, man. If there was ever a poster boy for corruption, it might be this guy. And again, I wish the best to him as far as proper representation, figuring himself out, but that is crazy, bro. That is crazy. I'm afraid to even have it on screen too long because of the tube.
Held his gun to citizens' heads. Officer Gindra was ultimately terminated in 2020 for violating department search and seizure policies, and the Internal Affairs Division referred the situation to the FBI. On November 6, 2020, the DOJ announced that former Officer Gindra had been charged in federal court with 6 counts of acquiring a controlled substance by deception, 2 counts of extortion under color of official right, and 3 counts of deprivation of rights under color of law. On November 2, 2021, following a 10-day trial, a jury convicted Officer Gindra of 3 counts of acquiring a controlled substance by deception and 2 counts of deprivation of rights under color of law, 1 count of which stemmed from the encounter with Mr. Brown. And on June 8, 2022, Officer Gindra was sentenced to 38 months in prison, followed by 1 year of supervised release. On October 11, 2022, Mr. Brown filed a lawsuit against former Officer Gindra and the city of Minneapolis. And on August 31, 2023, the case was dismissed after Mr. Brown accepted a $95,000 settlement. Overall, former Officer Gindra gets an F for behaving in an unprofessional and hostile manner throughout the interaction, searching Mr. Brown's vehicle without a warrant or any constitutional justification for doing so, and seemingly planting drugs in Mr. Brown's vehicle, potentially in an attempt to intimidate Mr. Brown into keeping quiet about the encounter. Now, while we do not know for certain that Officer Gindra planted the white substance in the vehicle, it would be consistent with his actions in other detentions, and he appeared to position his body so that the so-called discovery of the substance would not be captured on camera. Additionally, although it is impossible to say for certain, it also appears that Officer Gindra may have removed paper currency from Mr. Brown's wallet, potentially then using the same bill to plant the white substance.
We'll be out on Wednesday. I'll keep on the
Now, I would typically give an officer the benefit of the doubt in a situation like this where the body camera footage was inconclusive. But, given the criminal convictions that were later sustained against former Officer Gindra, I find myself inclined to believe that something even more nefarious than an unconstitutional search occurred during this encounter. As for Mr. Brown, I cannot rightfully assign a grade to an individual who was targeted by an officer attempting to find illicit substances in order to fuel his own drug addiction. While it is likely that Mr. Brown did not display his license plate properly, this is a minor equipment offense, and Mr. Brown did appear to have made a good faith effort to display the license plate in the back window. And although driving without a license is a more serious offense, it is unclear whether Mr. Brown was actually unlicensed in this situation or simply did not provide Officer Gindra with his driver's license. Regardless, I commend Mr. Brown for remaining calm and complying with Officer Gindra's orders during this encounter, while also taking appropriate legal action after the fact to seek recompense for the violation of his constitutional rights.
Crazy overall, definitely crazy overall. Let me know what you think down below. Was he planning on planting that or keeping it? Let me know if you want more of this auditing content. Let me know what you want me to react to next. Much love as always. Be safe out there. And remember, officer or private citizen, it's innocent until proven guilty. Why'd I do that?